adding people on. So just so you know, I'm bringing in my co-host. How you doing tonight, McMac?
I'm good, and you?
I'm doing pretty good. So I
Good.
didn't start out with music because I was explaining to my audience that I'm trying to incorporate several different types of audiences in
Mhm.
tonight's show to try to marry the family from YouTube, Instagram to Facebook. So I know I've sent out some invites. So I'm trying to be live on both mediums. So I'm already live on YouTube and of course
Mhm.
StreamYard, which is casting to the other mediums as well. And so we're gonna see if this thing crack a lacking here in a minute. I see my sisters coming on. Sherry, how are you doing this evening?
Hi, what's up, brother? Hi, Tasha.
Hey, Sherry.
All right. So as usual, I like to check in with everybody before I get started in my topic. So how everybody feeling on this inauguration day?
Great.
Oh, I forgot it was today. It's just another Wednesday for me.
Okay. How you doing, D?
Good. How are you guys?
Doing good, sweetheart. Missed you on Saturday's show. Your presence definitely missed, you know.
I know it was a rough day at work. So I
Understand.
didn't get out till late. So yeah,
And well, how are you doing this evening?
I'm good. I'm really good. Yeah, I'm just ready.
So yeah, we're gonna have an interesting show. I want to give a couple of people maybe two or three more minutes, and we'll get started. As I was telling everybody, I'm live on YouTube as well as live on StreamYard, and I'm broadcasting it to Instagram and Facebook all at the same time. I'm trying to marry all of the mediums to try to get a little bit more exposure. So uh,
Okay.
you guys see me kind of hesitating. That because I'm switching back and forth between them to be able to try to pick up audiences from different mediums. So we're gonna do that. Tasha has already posted the link for tonight's show. I also posted the link for tonight's show on my actual Facebook page in big bold if you need it. What's up, Carlos? How you doing? Appreciate you logging in, my brother. In about 2 more minutes, we're gonna get into this subject like we always do. Everybody know that on Wednesdays we try to, bite a little meat from the bone. So we're gonna do that tonight. You know,
Right.
so so that's what we're gonna do. But I'm in a pretty good mood today. For Tasha, it was just another Wednesday for me. It was waking up from a 4-year national nightmare. So my
Yeah.
energy level is up.
Ooh, today was a good day.
Today was a good day. I've watched different bits and pieces of it, but it's just great to turn the page.
Hmm.
To have something new, and hopefully we can be moving back in the right direction. Derek, what's going on, D? Appreciate you, my brother. You're welcome to come on live. That link is posted there. Tasha already posted it. It's also posted on my page. You're welcome to come on live and be a in studio guest. But if you choose to stay in the green room, please participate. I ask you guys to please ask questions. Myself, Tasha, will be monitoring this all night. We'll try to get in as many questions, answered or your viewpoints. Also, of course, since you're on, invite somebody else to join. Call a friend, text a friend while you're watching to say, hey, check this show out. Even if they come in for 20, 30 minutes, check it out, see what we're doing. And so, with that said, we're gonna go ahead on and we're gonna get started. And hopefully we'll get some people to join us, as we get into the topic. I try not to do this on CP time, so I try to be, you know, I'm
Be
here,
on time. That's
you
right. Be
guys
on
are
time.
here, so we're gonna get this thing cracking since we are here tonight. It's one a topic we're gonna be talking about. We're gonna be talking about family secrets, and we're getting Kennard to join us. What's going on, Mr. Kennard?
What's going on, y'all? How you doing?
Oh man, doing good tonight. So appreciate you for joining us as always. Looking forward to your views. And so we're going to be talking about family secrets. As you guys always know, I try to tackle some of this more serious content on Wednesdays. I just think it's a good feel for the middle of the week to have those kind of serious conversations, and everything's not always about fluff. So before I get into the subject matter, I want to get you guys' opinion when you think about family secrets. What exactly comes to mind? And before calling anybody, what comes to mind when you think about family secrets?
I think about things that happen within the family that have caused heartache or problems, or what I'm saying, things from childhood that happen. Things like that.
Okay. Anybody else?
Dysfunction. That's all I think of. It's nothing positive. It has nothing good is going to come of it. Whatever it is, it's going to be devastating, and it's going to harm and hurt someone. And I also think that with family secrets, there's no easy way to reveal them. I think that they do need to be discussed because healing cannot and will not happen by keeping it a secret.
Very, very well said. Very well said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
You know,
a lot of resentment that goes on in families, and like Tasha said, dysfunction, pain, abuse. A lot of those things could possibly be traced back to a family secret that hasn't been revealed. Like, say, for
Absolutely.
instance, a child that was born out of an outside child, or a situation where there was some abuse in the family by, say, an uncle or aunt that was never really talked about, just brushed under the rug, or a situation to where I don't know, just things that need to be placed on the table, but it's easier said than done.
Absolutely.
Those things are not. Yeah, those things. It's easy to say, well, let's just call out daddy because he was a molester, but that's easier said than done. Or even it could because especially as we are connected, our black families a lot of times are interconnected with the church. Abuse of some sort, something that may have happened at the church, that's not talked about, and those things definitely need to be brought in the forefront at a certain point in order for that family to move to the next level and start the healing process.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you guys set me up perfectly because of where you were leading, Kennard. We're going to talk about how did we even get here. And I love the word that you used, Tasha. You called it dysfunction. If ever there was dysfunction, it's within the black family, on so many different levels. So I thought it was dubious that you used that word. It was right on time.
Yeah.
We're as African American people, we're strong, we're resilient, probably the most resilient people on the planet with all we've gone through, but we're very dysfunctional on so many different levels, and there's so many different layers to it. And as Kennard was saying, a lot of this can be traced back to secrets that's been kept in the family. And believe it or not, a lot of it comes from so-called stable institutions like marriage, like family, like church. And so we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But I wanted to kind of set the table with that how as we all have become friends and we have friendships, and you're talking to people and you're getting to know them. And sometimes there's a tendency to think that, man, my family is really screwed up. Oh my God, they just can't be as bad as us. And as you get older, you come to find out that, man, there's a lot of people out there, and sometimes you have to sit back like, damn, they more screwed up than we are. You know what I'm saying? Because believe it or not, just about
Yeah.
every family,
Sure.
there's these secrets. There's
Right.
these scabs that are covering over canker sores, that we don't talk about. You know what I'm saying? And so comedians, they do, I think, in my opinion, the best job of anybody when it comes to talking about family secrets because they bring humor to it. But in the midst of humor, they're talking about real thing. If you think of some of the greatest comedians of all time, they're the most flawed, scarred people in the world from Family Secrets. The Richard Pryors, the Robin Williams, the Freddie Prinze Jr.'s who killed themselves. A lot of these names you might not even know. If you dig and pull the curtain back on some of these people, man, these are people that were molested, had abusive parents, come from some of the most horrific backgrounds, And then when you talk about, in particular, welcome Candace, African American people, the question is, how did we get here? The question is, how did we get here? How do we get to a point where in the African American family, we keep so many family secrets? And I'm going to talk about some of this, but anybody, how do you think we got here as African Americans? Because on the surface, we're brash people. We're not a shy people. You know, we out front. Why do you think it when it comes to the most tragic things about our histories and our families that we keep those as secrets? How do you think we got here?
Fear.
Because
I think one of the ways we got,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I think one of the ways we got here is there's a certain imagery that the typical Black family wants to portray. They want to be perceived as, you know, upper echelon, or our family is known for this. We have this reputation. Because I remember growing up, my aunt, one of my aunts, if I brought someone over, like a friend over,
Right.
for whatever rude reason, she would ask that person, well, who are your folks? You know, and she would ask, and I know the reason why she would ask who their folks were, because she wanted to get kind of feel of what type of person that she thought that I was hanging around. Because if I was hanging a certain type of a certain family or a certain, then, you know, you don't want to hang out with them because they're known for doing this. And I think some of those secrets are brushed under the rug because families want to portray an image, and if that image of dysfunction or abuse or sexual abuse or any of those things get out in the public, especially when most of the Black community is a very, at least in past times, was a very confined community, a very community, and keep those secrets in house because you don't want people to know or to give your family that bad reputation. I think imagery plays a big part.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a true valid point. And that's kind of what I was talking about, that how we present ourselves, you know, as so, you know, confident. We come across as the most confident people in the world, but a lot of it's just image and it's mirror. D, you had something to say. I don't want you to forget your thought.
I was just going to say there's a level of embarrassment to it too, and you don't want to be outcast in the, you know, the groups that you run with. So imagine if your husband's molesting your daughter, the church ain't gonna really be down with that, and not just him get outcasted. Usually it's the whole family. That's how Black people do it. And there's a level of embarrassment that, you know, we just don't want people in our business, no matter how good sometimes or bad it may be. We don't want anybody in our business.
That's the one right there.
Yeah.
And Derek agrees with you. He had posted in the commentary section, embarrassment. That's the biggest one. I think
Mhm.
it's a level of embarrassment because we are a proud people, you know, and if you're of a particular age, like I am, me and my sister growing up, we grew up with those sayings, you don't tell nobody what's going on in your house. What happens here stays
Mhm.
here. Don't you take my business outside this house. It was embedded in you to keep secrets. You believe it or not, it was you were taught that from infancy. You got hit in the mouth if you went out and told, I'm talking about the most smallest things, what you had for dinner, because the idea that you would tell people what's going on inside your mama's house, it was an embarrassment, you know.
Mhm.
And so that's a huge
Mhm.
one right there, you know, that for us, that's one of the ways that we got here. Candace, did you have anything to say?
No.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you were supposed to comment. I'm sorry.
I will say this. I think to me, it goes all the way back to slavery. We've always had to be quiet about everything. And so as we've transitioned, the way that we live, including being poor, all of that had to be kept in secrecy. And so to me, it just seems like we've always been taught to be invisible. So our problems don't even matter. So.
Very, very, very good point. How many of you have heard the expression, you know, and it's usually applied towards kids, be heard and, you know, be seen and not heard,
Right.
you know, and we tell our kids that.
Yep.
Tasha raised her hand. Well, guess what? That, to Candace's point, that was the way it was in slavery times. That was actually from what slavery was, because we weren't considered people. We was a black person was, you know, not even a 3/4 of a man. We were we were chattel, we were property. And so if you even go back and look at some of the movies when you think about slavery, Black people was in the room, but they were talked about as if they weren't there because they weren't real, because it was inbred in us to be seen and not be heard. And ironically, that system was passed down within our own culture, and we passed it down to our own children, our own families, you know? And so you wonder why we have spawned generations of kids that have gotten molested by Catholic church members and uncles and things, because they were taught to keep it quiet, to not tell anybody. And that's one of the ways that we've got here, you know? And then I would be remiss if I didn't talk about religion's effect on keeping secrets. You know, I think everybody on this panel here is somewhat religious except D. And I believe this is one of the reasons why it turns her off, is because of the level of hypocrisy, you know, and the damage that she's probably seen it do to people. And for me, that's even one of the reasons why it turned me away from religion into more spirituality, because like you, Dean, I have seen the hypocrisy in organized religion and how you're taught to keep things secret, to keep it in house, you know. And so that's a major role in just about every religion, believe it or not, because religion teaches you that God is going to handle things, you know. So you keep it inside, and you know, we sing these hymns that God is, D is looking at me with that face, you know, but that's a big reason why a lot of this has happened. You know, of course, everybody knows, you know, what happens for the centuries, you know, with the Catholic Church, you know, but they're the ones that get the lion's share of it. But don't think for one moment that it doesn't happen in Baptist churches, you know what I'm saying, amongst other religions, that it just happens very differently. It may not be children, but there's secrets where they preying on church members and other ways. But again, because we want to hold our ministers, our preachers, our elders, or whatever else up so high, the embarrassment of exposing them, that we as a people, we don't want to expose our leaders, you know, to that level. We just had Martin Luther King Jr. Day. What day was that? Monday. You know, so I was sitting there watching two movies at the same time, Selma and watching King, you know, and we all know that Martin Luther King Jr. is great, one of the greatest speakers ever. You know, great orator, did a lot of things, but also a very flawed man. You know, and that you know, and we don't talk about that part of it, that, you know, as great as he was as a speaker, that tongue was used more, not just for delivering from the pulpit, it probably was between quite a few legs.
I wanted to add this, Black, to what you're saying. I think people often have to deal with power and letting someone have the vulnerability over you, or that knowledge over you. It's just an extra way to control someone, or to, if you don't keep my secret, it's a way to keep someone under your thumb as well.
Very, very good point. Very good point right there. Right there. Very good point. And so that one builds into the whole, I said this in my teaser when me and Tasha did it last night. You know, that uncle at the barbecue, at the party, that, you know, that don't let them kids play with that uncle. You know what I'm saying? You know, and that uncle, that praying uncle, predator uncle, I should say, it is about power. This person is an authority, you know, and it could be an uncle you really, really like. And I'm gonna say this one here when it comes to the whole uncle and molestation. We're gonna talk about some specific things in just a moment. How much of it, guys, do you think is that, especially as men, Kennard, I want you to speak to this. As Black men, it's also inbred in us not to tell certain things if it happened to you as a boy, you know. And so we always think about,
you know, I could kind of.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Kennard.
Oh no, go ahead. Go ahead and finish your point, and I'll go ahead. After
What
that.
I was going to say is that we always, when we think about a kid getting molested, the image, used to always come to mind that it's a little girl, that the uncle is touching her, or some priest is touching her, this and that. Not talking about the Catholic Church, but one of the probably things that we never talk about, there's just as much touching, inappropriate touching, fondling that goes on with little boys as it is with girls. And once upon a time, we used to think that this was only a white people problem that happened. No, this happens quite frequently in Black families. We hear those stories from Tyler Perry, from Lee Daniels, myself. The reason why I brought that up, we talk about family secrets and how it affects relationships. I was molested. Now, I've never come forward, and I'm not one of those to do the whole Me Too, because I never looked at it as it ruined my life, and that's the reason why I can't snuggle up with a woman, and I don't like to hold a woman, and I don't like to kiss and nothing like that. No, all of those things I developed on my own, for my own personal reasons. But the other truth is, not only was I exposed to sex way too early by a female, I was also inappropriately touched by a male. And I've kept that to myself until this very moment. Until this very moment. Kennard, I'll let you say what you was going to say. I don't want you to lose your thought.
I think, I think the secrecy of all of this allows us to normalize this stuff. In holding those secrets back, in not exposing certain things. Sometimes, and especially in the Black community, sometimes I don't think we feel that there will be anything done about it. Because if we think about the consequence of killing a Black person versus the consequence of killing a white person, they're two totally different things. I think the accountability as far as repercussion goes for this wrongdoing, I think sometimes we brush it under the rug, like I said before, because we know the church isn't going to do anything about it. We know, let's just say if we are an abused child, we have could have the physiological thought that if I tell my mother or if I tell my father, they're going to reverse it and blame it on me. Victim shaming. And I think that's what happens in a lot of communities. And when it comes to the victim, it's kind of weird with how humans do, to where somehow when bad things happen to you, even as an innocent child, it's inadvertently your fault.
Right.
If you wouldn't have went around your uncle with those short shorts on, then, what I'm saying? Like bullshit like that.
Yeah.
And I just think, and I just think to a certain point, we have to get past the symbolisms. We got to get past the embarrassment and really face this thing head on, because it is becoming a generational thing, to where you have families who have a series of cyclical abuse and no one knows the origin, but it just keeps going. And the cycle of poverty, the cycle of ignorance, the cycle of lack of education, the cycle of sexual irresponsibility continues for years and years, and nobody gets anywhere with this.
Whoa. You preaching some deep ones right there, Kennard, seriously. And this is ones that I know I've talked to my friends about all the time. You wonder why they're so, in Black families, you hear when they talk about little girls, you know what they describe them as? Oh, she's just fast. Well, her little fast ass.
Right.
I feel like every Black girl, for some reason, is described as fast. Like,
you know what I'm saying?
You've been called fast.
But
it's not
Kennard,
right.
But Kennard just hit on that point, and the hairs on my arm are standing up, because it's generational, though. Because behaviors get passed down. And we all know that kids mimic what they see. You can preach all you want to. You guys have children. You can tell them, but they are watching. They see, and they mimic behavior. And so it's no secret that in this TikTok age, that we got 12 and 13 and 14-year-olds that's so hypersexualized that it's no wonder grown ass men are looking at them in that way, you know? And so it's because they're mimicking behavior that they've seen, but it's a deeper root behind it. As Kennard said, a lot of it is generational. And I'm going to tell a story, you know, and sis, I want you to jump in here when you can, because we're going to kind of, at this stage, we're going to kind of look into the darkness and bring a lot of this to the light. And Sherry, I want you, are you with me, sis?
I'm with you.
Okay. Our mom grew up in Meridian, Mississippi. Look, I don't call this real talk for real men because I shy away from telling certain truths. And this is one that I want to tell about something. And yeah, it can be embarrassing, like we established on the front end, and it's things we keep inside. But my mom is the strongest woman that I know for the things she's lived through. We grew up hearing about my mom cleaning people's houses, white people's houses, and she's left in a house as a 16, 17-year-old girl, and at that time had a killer body on her with the white homeowner who she spent her entire day fending off his sexual advances. Sherry, am I lying?
No.
Now let's add to that, because my mom had her first child when she was 16. So now we know she was sexually active. And at that time in the South, multiple generations of families lived under the same roof. You see, where we live now, where it's just one family in a house, that's not the way it used to be, especially in the Deep South, where you got cousins and uncles and aunts and aunties and third cousins all living under the same roof. And I remember the scene in the movie from Color Purple where Oprah Winfrey's character, she said, "A woman, child ain't safe in a family of men's." And there's some deep truth to that, because it took us a lot of years. Sherry attests to this. We have a sister, woo, Lord, that didn't grow up with us. And Sherry, Sherry, I'm looking at her face. There's some deep-seated family secrets that we just don't talk about in our family. And it took me and my sister the powers of deduction and looking into it. And I'm sorry if anybody watches this and feel like I'm exposing a little too much. It is what it is, but there are children of rape. There are children of there's a lot that goes on into a family, you know, and when you get down to this generation, and Kennard, you talked about it being generational, you wonder, how did that affect the generation that you get down to it? Well, coming from a large family, not one member of my family has more than 3 children. You think that didn't affect them? We grew up in a family where there wasn't a lot of affection. I genuinely struggle to think about a time when I was hugged and kissed. You know when I got hugged and kissed? If you were sick, if you had the flu, that's when you got the Vicks Vapor Rub rubbed on your head and neck and stuff like that. And, you know, but that lack of affection, it affects relationships. So you want to say, well, how did that affect? I'll talk about me personally. I'm not as an affectionate person. I had to learn. The truth of the matter is, since we're talking about how it affects relationships, I had to learn how to be affectionate to my wife because it didn't come natural. It was not a natural thing. Mm-hmm. And even till this day, I'm not a big person when it comes to public displays of affection. It feels wrong. And so when I've had girlfriends, I've had to make a conscious effort to hold somebody's hand, to hug them in public, because I know that that's needed, but it didn't feel natural to me because certain things were passed down to me.
I want to say this too. As little black girls, we are taught that our voice does not matter. Like I was in a situation where I was going to a church of a friend and a deacon made some sexual advances toward me, a married deacon when I was 16. He like pushed me up against the car, kissed me very passionately at 16. He's 36.
Ooh.
And I told everybody, I was like, he did this. And they were like, well, he's the deacon, and we just, he's a man. He has sins. So you are taught very young that even when you do tell your opinion, your voice, it does not matter. So you learn early that when things happen, you just keep quiet. You don't tell. And just continually not being heard and not being listened to and your voice not mattering, you learn to just, okay, this is what men do. So you
Wow.
just deal with it.
Wow.
You deal
Wow.
with it.
Anybody else want to speak to that,
Also,
their personal experience? I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
yeah, it goes back to also the some of the civil rights leaders and the pastors and even senators and different leaders and teachers, principals, different leaders in communities that I think sometimes as a Black community, we want to over perfectionize our leaders. And perfectionize might not be a word. I hope it is, but if it's not, we just coined it.
It is now. It is now.
We want to make, yeah, we want to make those leaders perfect because we feel like those leaders represent who we are as people when it comes to our religion or when it comes to our communities. And if our leader is exposed as anything less than perfect, then that refutes everything that we believe in. Like, say, for instance, I'll say even a relative, for example. Let's assume it might even be your grandfather or your father or your uncle. Your uncle that person was placed on this certain pedestal. And we want to keep him on that pedestal. So anything may demonize him or may credit everything that he had, all the pride that he's brought to the family, we're going to brush that shit under the rug. So if somebody comes and says that Uncle so-and-so did this, we're going to say, nope, he didn't. Or even if he did, and we know deep down he did do it, we're going to find a way to brush it under the rug and not even make that person a victim. But no, you cannot knock our leader off the pedestal. Because see, the bad part about it with Black folks, sometimes that's all we got. Sometimes that's all we have is our reputation as what our family is known for. Sometimes that's all we have. So if anything comes to destroy that, even if it's at the expense of allowing some demonic behavior to happen, then that's the curse that we have to break. We have to be honest with ourselves that granddaddy wasn't perfect, that Uncle so-and-so wasn't perfect, that Deacon so-and-so wasn't perfect.
Absolutely.
And I know good and well with D, I know that dude. I know he did it.
Right.
Because there's so many others
She's not making that up. Yeah.
And they're doing it now. No impunity. With no impunity.
And so I'm going to say, and I'm going to speak out on somebody I love. But to your point, that very sentiment is for my dude, R. Kelly. I love that man's music. Lord knows I do. And I have figured out a way to separate the man from the art. But what you're talking about, Kennard, is that very same thing. Because his music is so great, we as a people, we didn't want to see him demonized, that we were willing to overlook a lot of those things because, look, he didn't just start out liking young girls one day. We knew he had a problem. We knew Michael Jackson had a problem. You don't wake up one day and all of a sudden he like a 16-year-old. Candace knows him personally. This didn't happen in one day, but you know what? Because of his talent, because of his music, and when you're sitting at the top of the pedestal, there is a fear to tear the person down, like you said, Kennard, whether it's a preacher, a deacon, but even some of our sports idols, even some of our singers, that we just don't want to bring them down because of what they represent.
I think it goes beyond that too. I think in this country, black girls don't matter. So it's easy to, molest them and abuse them because look at all the black women that are missing. We don't get a news story. We don't get,
You all
imagine
right?
if as many white women were missing
You
as
all
black
right?
women. It would be headline. We just don't matter in this
You all
country. So
right?
it's easy for men to molest us and abuse us and to kill us because nobody's going to make a big deal about it.
Yeah,
You're right.
I agree with Dee, which is why I've never said this on the show. I am a womanist and not a feminist. Womanist believe in the protection of black women and black children
I'll
because
take that.
not only black girls, young black girls, but black boys are like our children are seen as throwaway children. So it's so many missing black children, boys and girls,
Right.
that it's just sad. And so going back to the R. Kelly thing and dealing with that situation, being an 11-year-old wanting to go to Chicago to ride in his limousine is how they used to present it.
Right.
I didn't think anything of it until actually I saw this Surviving R. Kelly, and then I thought of my child. And I'm like, I don't want my daughters going off with this grown man. He's pissing on people, excuse my language. He's peeing on people, like he's like exploiting them. And then when you hear his music, because I love, Kennard knows, I love R. Kelly. Like I had every album, every song from when I was probably 9. I don't know why my mother was letting me listen to him, but I had it. So it was like when I heard it then, and when I thought about my child, I felt like, oh, he's singing to children. That's the way it sounded to me, and I just
Okay.
could not listen to it anymore.
Okay.
I couldn't listen.
And that's why, as a man,
Yep.
it's harder for me to process what you feel with that, because he was such an idol to me. Add to that all of the behaviors that he's accused of, I'm guilty of as well. Not the underage part, but I pissed on a few. So, so
Too much info. I can say this, and I feel like with me, at almost every aspect, every age of my life, I remember a grown man saying something very inappropriate toward me, starting the memory at 10 when my stepdad's friend was like, oh, she gonna be bad when she grow up. And what grown man looks at a little girl, and that's the first thought.
They
And
had
I remember it. I remember teachers, preachers, guys at the store. It was always, yeah.
So let me ask you something.
there's
Sherry,
articles on it. Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
Sherry.
Go again.
There's articles on it. There was a Twitter movement on it. For some reason, black girls are sexualized starting out at 5. Like we're looked at as being older, and then don't let us be developed. Then they'll say, oh yeah, let's give her 2 or 3 more years. She's gonna be ready.
Wow.
So like there was a Twitter hashtag where it says name when you were first sexualized, and it was girls saying 8, 9. I myself 11. So
I believe it. I truly believe it. Go ahead, Sherry.
I was saying, Candace and Dee, so as mothers, that doesn't that make you be overprotective?
Yes.
Because Freddie could tell you that when my daughter I was so overprotected. I still am. That when she turned like 8, I didn't allow her to sit on her own father's lap because I didn't want her. I used to tell her I don't want her sitting on no guy's lap, no uncles, brothers, whatever. So I had to start at home. So I was just wondering, like knowing these things, you have to be so, protected over them because people, predators are out here, even in your family.
And let me ask you this, sis. That also comes from what Daracel just said. When you was young with the Coke bottle shape, how often were you approached by men that was much older than you?
All the time, and it was disgusting. Even when I would be with my mother, walking to the grocery store, and they would come up to us and, Miss, your daughter, and I used to be fussing them out. I couldn't curse at that time, but I wanted to, but they do it with my daughter. A police officer came to me for my daughter, and I said to him, "You're a grown man. She's only 15." And then he was like, "Oh, I'm sorry." I said, "I should report you." So it's real disgusting. To this day, my daughter cherishes. She would never be in a relationship with somebody that's a certain age older because of that. Because she felt she used to look older because she was chubby. And they used to approach her all the time. And it sickens her to this day.
Okay.
And men don't realize that. A lot of older men, for some reason, think that young women want them. No, not
I
when you've
know, right?
been lusted after all your life, and they look like it triggers you.
Now imagine, and too, imagine the girls that didn't have their dad there and they're just looking for a father figure. A lot of guys read that wrong as, you know,
Mhm.
them wanting to date them, so they take advantage of that. I mean, it's a lot of that going on.
True.
Darcel, what you just said is a perfect segue into where I wanted to go next because I wanted to highlight some of the things that have caused shame and that's been a part of the darkness when it comes to keeping family secrets. And that actually was number one, believe it or not. It talks about divorce. Whenever
Hmm.
I'm researching for these topics, I'm always amazed by when I discover these facts and it rolls in my head and I get to an opportunity to kind of see how it applies because I never thought about divorce as being something of a family secret that could alter how we look at relationships in terms of shame. But to you
Hmm.
just said that because as I was looking, I was thinking about it. It didn't hit me at first because I don't. My mom wasn't married. Well, she was married, but her husband wasn't in the house. We didn't grow up with a father figure, so it was always just my mom. And so for me, I didn't process it that way. But to your point, Daracel, for children of divorce, and for them, that's probably a big thing to all of a sudden go from the stable household to now my parents are divorced and I'm going to keep that a secret. And then how that manifests itself is that last part you said, younger girls looking for a father figure, you know,
Hmm.
and I can sit here and tell you as a one-time predator,
You shouldn't say it like that.
I'm keeping it honest. I'm keeping it real. I'm keeping it real. I literally preyed on the fatherless daughters because let's go back to an episode of Good Times. We
Yep.
all we all black. We just played Black Card Revoked. You missed it on Saturday, Darcel.
No.
Everybody know who James Evans is, right? Do you remember the episode when Thelma was dating a college student and he was writing a thesis? Anybody remember that episode? Well, in the episode, Florida and James was upset because the books was Sex in the Ghetto, and James in Florida was upset. And when they turned to the page where the guy had interviewed Thelma, he talked about that in households where there is a stable father figure, there's less tendencies for premarital sex, and that was the
Hmm.
crux of the show. And that episode, mind you, was back in the 60s and the 70s, I should say. It's still true today. It's still very true today. So when I use the term predator, you damn right. When I was out there as the big bad wolf, I wasn't going to nobody's house where there was a strong father figure that could whoop my ass. You know, I'm finding those women that I knew had in this. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
So I'm sorry.
Yep.
Go ahead, Josh.
I can tell you this: as someone who had a strong father figure in the house, it did not matter. I went looking for what I wanted to go look for. I
You
wanted to do it because that's what I wanted to do. It did not
okay?
matter.
Okay.
My dad was. I lived with my dad. I was raised by my dad and my stepmom. It did not matter who was in that house. I wanted to do what I wanted to do.
I got you. So
And
let
I'll
me ask
say,
you something. Let me ask you
oh,
something. So since you said that, and I happen to, I don't know your father, but I know your father that he's there. I know he's a strong, decent man. When you look back on that now, do you say to yourself that you were rebelling against something? Why do you feel like that hypersexualized activity that you went through at that young age? Why?
for for me, it was definitely rebelling against just all of the rules and how controlled my life was at the time and how strict it was. I grew up in a very strict household. So for me, it was my senior year in high school. I had up until that point played basketball all the time. Should have played my senior year, could have played in college, but that's a different story. But I decided to just do what I wanted to do and it's what little control I had over my life. And so it was just a bunch of looking back on it, I should have waited because of how it affected my family, my dad, and just everything. I wish I would have waited till I was out of the house before I did that.
I got you. I got you.
She
I
couldn't
got.
have grew up in no stricter household than ours.
I
Oh, it
saw
was
Sherry.
strict.
I saw Sherry shaking her head, so I knew you had something to say on that. Go ahead, sis.
No, I'm just saying, like
No,
I
no, because
was
I want you to tell
told,
about your rebellion. Because
yeah,
we remember now there wasn't a father in the household, but Tasha, when you talk about rebelling, Sherry, you tell for you what it was. What
first
it
of all,
was.
I tried to get him to be down with my program. He was down for a minute because I told him I'm going outside because I couldn't go out. And I was saying, I'm going outside now. When I throw the rocks at the window, you open the door. He did it a couple of times. Then he let me get beat.
I was a good obedient child, just so you know. I was the obedient one.
He didn't want to go. Like, she was basing me off of him because, believe it or not, the party Freddie that y'all know, he never went outside. He
Right.
always was reading a book or looking at some documentary on TV. I wanted to be outside. You understand with what was going on, the jams and the parties and stuff. And I would get beat if he didn't hear me throw the rock to the window because he wouldn't open the door to let me in. So I had to knock and get beat. But we couldn't. First of all, my mother, after a while, what I'm saying, she was a Jehovah's Witness, so we had to go to the hall on Friday, Wednesdays and Fridays.
Wednesdays and Fridays.
So on Fridays, when everybody was out in no school and everybody out and playing and going we had to be going to the hall. When we come back from the hall, we couldn't go outside.
Correct.
We couldn't do nothing or whatever. It was basically clean up, wash baseboards, wash balls. You couldn't have no company like that. We was that household that you see on TV or on the Facebook that had the lock on the phone, couldn't have no phone calls. That's why I taught you. I'm looking at you like you said strict.
It was strict.
And you couldn't. When we got if I did give somebody the number and they called there, can I speak to Sherry? Who gave you this number? Sherry, forget you ever knew this number. Bang. Don't come to the door because you're going to get fussed out. Listen, you couldn't have no friends, couldn't go outside, couldn't do nothing. You better go read a book. You can't go in your room and sit on your bed. Because
so let me highlight how that affected she and I differently. And welcome, Bert. Welcome, Hannah. I did pronounce it right, Sherry?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay, Hannah. Tasha gets on me. Hannah, how you doing, Hannah? What's going on, Bert? Y'all welcome to join the panel as well. But Sherry's right, where I was the obedient documentary reading guy. What nobody knew is I led a completely double life because there was a shame of me letting my family know that how could this straight A, perfect attendance, do no wrong kid be into this depraved things, but the secrets that nobody knew was I was being molested. I was dealing with my own shit. And so how do you balance as a 10, 11-year-old kid? Who do you tell? Who do you go say that this is happening to me? But wait a minute, you get perfect grades. You never miss school. You have perfect attendance. You're the smartest person in the whole freaking school. Not in class, in the whole freaking school. At 10, 11 years old, I had a radio talk show. Right, Sherry?
mm-hmm.
I went to school 7 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
I went to regular school. I went to a Catholic school program on Saturday. Think about all the shit I'm telling y'all. And on Sunday, I went to a college prep program. I was being raised to be the next Martin Luther King Jr. I toured around giving speeches with Muhammad Ali and the mayor of New York City. I'm not making this shit up. This is the God's honest truth.
Yeah.
So who do you tell if on the one hand, I'm doing all of this, who do you go tell that we're on the back end, I got shit happening to me? Because who gonna, like you said, who gonna believe me?
Why you didn't tell me?
Mhm.
Shame. I felt. Let me tell you the God's honest truth. Me and Sherry is tighter than tight, but there is no way I could tell anybody what I was going through. And do you know, sis, I couldn't wait to leave New York City to be able to explore, like a serial killer, all these pent up urges and explore them. Stop laughing, Tasha, because you know. But seriously, because I knew if I went somewhere else, nobody knows me, so I could be a different person.
But
And
brother,
that's
he was like some kind of predator, because like who has sex with people with no arms and legs and shit like that? Like,
look. I had to acting. So I'm gonna say to y'all right now, had I not got all that shit out, I probably would have been a serial killer because I had all this shit going on in my brain. So yeah, I want to know what it's like to sleep with a midget. And she don't have no arms. That ought to be interesting. Let me see what she got going on. So yeah, I went there.
No,
But
some people.
I'll say this, like, back on a serious note. I'll just say that when kids are molested or abused, it affects them all in some type of way. And a lot of girls that are promiscuous at a young age, it's because they've been molested and they don't know how to say it, and they don't. And we look at them as fast or hot or whatever, but they've been molested, and all they know to get attention is sexual attention. So they sleep with everybody and they do all these things. And kids that are abused are, more introverted and quiet and things like that. And we, as a Black community, we miss all those signs. We don't look at it like that.
Nobody knew, D.
And I
Nobody.
feel like this.
Yeah.
Some people don't tell. Let's say this. I did not tell because it makes it real. And so sometimes when those things are happening, I can separate myself from my body and just leave and zone out. If I'm telling somebody, now it's real, and I have to face what's happening, and then I have to deal with the consequences of what's going to happen with that person and what they told me they would do to me if people found out. So it's a lot. Going back to the single parent home, I grew up in a single parent home, and I was the opposite. I didn't rebel. I did not want to take care of children at a young age. So I did all the right things in order not to have children, not to be like my mother. I wanted to be different.
Okay.
And so and that was kind of hard too, living up to this standard of being perfect and breaking this cycle. It played a lot into who I am, which is probably why I drink all this alcohol. So
Me too, sister.
Yeah.
Me too.
I was thinking about I was thinking about this little things going on with Kevin Samuels and him bringing to the forefront the high value male and all this other stuff, which I mean, it is what it is. But I think what also needs to be brought to the forefront is, and it's something that all of us, I think in a roundabout way, have kind of alluded to. Sometimes I don't think we ask our children the right questions. I think we just assume that everything is all right. And I think it's okay that if we do have children, and especially like even with our son, especially, we try to do a temperature check, so to speak, because everything is not always all right. Whether they could possibly be being bullied in school or whatever the case may be. I think as parents, we, especially after we've grown up in these push under the rug families, we need to probe our children a little bit more to say, hey, is everything really okay? And try not to put too much pressure on them, but leave that open door to where they can actually come to you. They're not. Now, I'm gonna tell you this: as a former child myself, I ain't telling my parents everything, but I just want, at least as a parent, to know at least the base stuff to where I can be supportive.
I have a question.
Very good point. Go ahead.
I just have a question for the parents on here. My question is that we're talking about the generational effects and everything. Can sometimes, especially with you said how you feel like sometimes that Black girls are just overlooked and everything, can we not attribute that sometimes to the family? Like, do we not see a problem when the mothers put these young girls at 11 and 12 years old on birth control immediately? It's just like they're already gonna fuck. It's just the assumption they're just gonna fuck. That they don't bring any kids to my house.
I think too, one of the major things that I have a problem with in our community is us treating, it's not just everybody else, but we treat our kids a lot older sometimes, especially the girls. Like, I hear friends of mine who have 17, 18, 19-year-olds. Like, no, she can get out and she's an adult at 18. At 18, you're not an adult. I'm sorry. You're still a baby and you still need guidance and you still need help. So if we're already thinking, that they're much older and the world perceives them as much older, I mean, how does that affect your children? It puts a lot of stress and strain on them too. So I don't think putting an 11-year-old birth control is the right thing. But if you see your child is out there, or they're latchkey kids that are always home by themselves, then that may be the best option.
I think that's just so crazy, though. As a late bloomer myself,
Right.
I didn't start my cycle till 14. So putting me on birth control at 11 is just, I feel like ridiculous.
The only reason why I ask is because I had a very, very well-developed cousin, and her mother put her on birth control very young. And I don't think it's just because she was just hot in the pants like that. I think it's just because of how she looked and how she was shaped, and her mother was just trying to hedge her bets, kind of.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I got
I
people tell me I have a weird relationship with my daughter because she's 31, but she calls me like you wouldn't imagine. I know what you know how a person. I know where she's literally at all times. At age, she don't have to call me, but she do. It's just a relationship we have. But
Yeah.
on birth control,
I have a question about this whole birth control at 11. Like, where are you at as a parent where you don't even trust your child when they're not with
Right.
you? Like,
At 11.
when my child is 11, they're just going to school. So,
But I want to say something to that in a second. But let's bring Hannah in here. Welcome, Hannah. Thank you for coming on camera. Come on in this conversation. Come on.
Okay, so I'm just going to speak on birth control. It might be a TMI. So I was on birth control since the age of 13, not for sex, but because I used to get severe menstruals where I literally passed out. And the doctor had to regulate me so I can kind of regulate myself. And I didn't lose my virginity until about 6-7 years later. So it wasn't about sex. It was just for certain people be on birth control for different reasons.
Okay.
So I don't think it's also sometimes you're being fast. However, when my stepdad found out, he felt as though I was being fast, and my mom knew why the doctor put me on birth control.
Okay.
But he was just so much into the church that he felt as though I was being an abomination because I was on birth control and I wasn't holy yet no more. It was just ridiculous over birth control. So everyone's not on birth control, I don't think, for sexual reasons.
I agree.
It can be for hormonal reasons as well.
I just want to say something as a man because, again, I don't know, but what I surmise is this. So just listening to you guys, you're highlighting that not every young girl is hypersexually active. But to Tasha's question, so if you got a parent out here that's just automatically assuming to put her on birth control, I think, though, the other part that's missing is how many of them are having a real conversation then with that 11-year-old, that 12-year-old, to talk to them about sex, because that may be the piece that's missing then. Because my thing is, I know parents right now that expose their kids to birth control at 12, 13 years old and didn't have the talk. And again, I know probably the younger generation don't even know what that expression means, but I come from a time when you had the talk. But how many parents are out here having the talk?
Not many. That's
not many. I never got to talk. I learned by myself. Yeah.
I never got to talk either, and that's the problem. And I'll say this: people are so quick to say these girls are hypersexualized. Your teenage years are your times to learn anyway. So what you might think is hypersexualized, it's just hormones or raging hormones, and it's really your job as a parent to just sit down with your child and have a talk with them.
Good point. Good point.
Or the right talk. I got the wrong talk. This was my talk.
Oh wow!
You have sex, you get pregnant. Like, what the heck is that? Like, that was
very true. Hannah, very true. Because I can even say in our household, we didn't get to talk. Sherry was saying, but you know what we did here? Welfare office on 125th Street. So the fear was putting you that if you do have sex, it's automatically going to lead to getting pregnant. And so there is a miseducation, that goes on, you know, and then even as a boy, hearing my mom telling my sisters that, oh my God, the fear was unreal, thinking that, hell, at one point I thought that if I rubbed my thing up against a girl that she was gonna get pregnant. You know what I'm saying? So
I got the very clinical, very diagrams and all. I got these very, very informative, exactly what goes on, how it
see,
happens, everything talk.
see,
But it was when I started my cycle. That's when I got to talk.
who did that talk come from, Tasha?
My stepmom. I was 10 years old. My stepmom.
Now hold on now. I want y'all to hear this. Your stepmom, white or black?
She's white.
Mm-hmm.
Well, shit, I was bleeding, so somebody got to tell me something. I don't know what's going on.
Let me know.
I gave my
And
talk.
my son is in middle school. He's only in 6th grade. He's 11. But last year in 5th grade, his teacher told us, she was like, have you had the talk yet? And we were like, no. And she was like, well, these girls are talking because some of the girls have older sisters and some of the
Yep.
kids have older brothers that are
Yep.
exposing them. So she basically said, if you don't tell him, he's going to learn from them. And that is not the way. And I was just thinking, oh my God, he's 10 years
No,
old.
see, Derek makes that point. Derek says it's sad
Yeah.
to say you may need to have the talk with your kids early in the time that we live, and they're right. Because I said this to somebody earlier today. Your children are walking around with a computer every day. When you hand them a tablet or an iPhone or whatever, in our day, if you wanted to see porn or something, you had to sneak all around like a damn, you know, little secret agent to get somebody to buy you a sex magazine and hide it under the bed and shit, or jack off to J.C. Penney or some shit, you know. Where now they got porn on tap. Everything's exposed to them. So you cannot assume anymore that just because they're young, you're right, D. They're gonna hear from, and I'm gonna tell you something. The girls have always been more developed than boys anyway, mentally, emotionally.
Yeah.
And so you talking about that was in my time. Can you imagine now? These young girls, oh my God, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Can I say one thing?
Sure, please.
So
Yeah.
he'll be 15 this year. And when he was in kindergarten, this girl kept kissing him. He went to 1st grade, the same girl. When he went to 7th grade, all of a sudden, this same girl was deciding to tell him certain things. So I had to have the talk with him prior to now. And then recently, she was sending him actual naked pictures of herself on her cell phone.
Yep.
And he is every bit of 14. I mean, he's taller than me already, but he's not a grown man. He's 14.
Right.
And I'm like, from kindergarten, this girl has been like, not gonna say invading him because he's a boy, you know, but I don't know how to put it. But
She's a predator.
yes, basically.
She's a predator.
But like this girl says, and I had to come up to the school, and the mom was like, well, let me buy him a video game. And I'm like, no, like she cannot be kissing on him. And
So you talk to the parents?
I talked to the parents. So, okay, y'all also Mean Girls?
Mm-hmm.
It's the mom on Mean Girls.
Wow. Wow.
So talking to the parent is like,
Wow.
to this lamp. It was to no avail. So I feel like sometimes you have to talk to them because what you say in your household is a certain way, but what goes on in someone else's household, you can't control that. And some of these parents are out here telling the kids things that we don't tell our children. And I tried to shield them from some things, but when they ask me, I tell them, like, I'm very blunt. Sometimes I'm too blunt, but I feel as though as a parent, you have to learn from me because I would hate for you to learn from someone else on the street.
And then that girl exposing my son to child pornography, I would have to press charges. I'm sorry.
She's black.
I would press charges.
And you know we moved from Philadelphia to North Carolina. Like we're literally 8 hours away. Why are you sending her pictures?
That means there must be something, a family secret going on with her and her family that would make you question that.
Yeah.
Which tells you again, like Derek said, you know, kindergarten kids are singing the song WAP. again, they're exposed to this at an early age.
Oh,
So
wow.
that brings us to how we have to. No, and it's true. And what's funny about that is, so again, what's funny about that is where you might be like, well, no, I'm not gonna let my child listen to that. For every one of you that's not gonna let your child listen to that, there's 100 kids that do let their young daughters sing this song WAP, like Derek say, word for word, even though mentally they might not even understand what they're singing about. And so that brings us to
Right.
coping with the truth, because that's the first step. You got to accept the truth of it, that it's real, that there is a problem, because those parents themselves, see, we can already say that the parents we're talking about, we're not talking about big mamas. We're talking about grandmothers in their 30s. We're talking about kids growing up
Oh,
in
yeah.
households where they're being raised by aunties.
Yeah.
We're talking about young men growing up in households where
Man.
there is no father figure. So the young men are learning how to be a man and learning about sex from Lil Uzi and Lil Word or whoever the fuck these people are. You know what I'm saying? And so their idea of manhood is their pants slagging off their ass, and half of them look feminine. So, you know, their idea of what it means to be masculine and to, you got kids making babies out here, and it all can be traced back to behaviors that nobody talks about, because we keep kicking that can down the road, passing it along, as if it's going to get better. And so we got to get to a point where, how do we face the truth? So we know that no family is immune from family secrets. Let's be honest out there. And I didn't even really get a chance to go into all the different types of secrets where we could talk about secrets of adoption or alcoholism, about what about when there's a job loss and you poorer than people think. See, all these things we don't think about. The extramarital affairs. We never even talked about homosexuality. We never even talk about homosexuality, the exposure to that, gambling problems, physical abuse. This stuff is real, and it happens in more families than you will imagine. And it's real. But we hide it. We don't talk about it. We pretend that it doesn't happen. And so when now we face to the fact, well, let's cope with the truth of it. That every last one of us, there's something that's happened in our background, you know, in our families. How do you deal with it? So I want to kind of go around the room, and I'm not asking you to tell what your family secret is, but how do you deal with the fact that there are things that has happened traumatically in even your life personally or with your family? How do you deal with it personally? So how do you cope? I told a little bit about my story, you know, and just to reiterate, as I've gotten older, I realized things that have shaped me into who I am. You know, I don't choose to look at it and say that it's made me unlovable or I can't hold a relationship or whatever, but I'm also truthful enough to say that it has affected my relationships. To be honest with you, marriage and relationships are very difficult for me because I'm so private that I don't like to share a lot of who I am, and I realize that comes from things that I've had to protect in myself, and I'm not as affectionate as I should be. I had to teach myself I didn't have anybody teach me how to be affectionate, you know, so I had to learn to do that. I'm still learning. And so, yeah, I'm working on myself. That's for me. You know, anybody, how are you coping with your family secrets?
I'll say this. When was it? I was my junior year in high school. It came out that I had another brother. It was, you know, my dad had like some years back had been with this woman, and she had a son. My grandmother for years had always told us that we had another brother, but my dad would adamantly deny that was his son. like just like all of us. But it finally got confirmed then. And it definitely shifted the the household. What I learned from that though, because I'm the only one that claims it, nobody else claims it except me. What I learned from that is the honesty and the openness of how important it is to talk about it. I did not get the shame. I did not understand it. It happened years ago. You cannot change the outcome of it. It happened. You have to embrace it. I mean, you can choose to whether or not you want to have a relationship with that person, but you have to deal with it now that it's here. So for me, I can say for me, that's when I learned to be a lot more honest and open about things that I was going through, and it just needs to be said. So for me, honesty is how I cope with it.
Mhm.
Do you know that's considered the step one? There's a 5-step that I pulled up. It talked about, Tasha, letting yourself feel. It said you might feel discomfort, disgust, anger, pain, denial, rejection, grief, apathy. You're allowed to feel whatever you need to feel behind it as long as you acknowledge it. So that's the step one, is facing the truth of it. Anybody else want to add?
I'll say this. For me, I've gone to therapy. Talking to someone that's not associated with me at all and that does not know me personally has been easy to talk about it. And then, of course, I talk about it with my husband. A lot of times he doesn't know a lot of my family, so I feel like he's my best friend. I can share with him. So for me, it's therapeutic just to get it out. So that's how I deal with it.
I love you guys as an audience because you're so intelligent and you just make this more easier than I ever could imagine. Step 2 is processes your emotions in a healthy way. It literally talks about being able to talk with a safe, trustworthy person. And so you talk about your husband being your best friend. You also talked about therapy. Now, we all know that we're just now as a people getting comfortable with the idea that we can go to therapists, because we know that growing up in Black families, we're told to take some Robitussin and lay your monkey ass down.
You take it to the altar. You take it to the church.
Or leave it at the altar. You know what I'm saying? But as we've grown and become more intelligent, we know that it doesn't make you mentally insane to go talk to somebody you trust, because we've held all of that negative energy in so much that we got to get it out. And that your husband is your best friend. Not everybody has a husband. Somebody asked me just today, and I ain't gonna say somebody. My boy, I was dealing with a numbskull today in business, Candace, and my boy was like, "Damn." He said, "Man, I see what you deal with." And I told him, "You know how I deal with it? I curse and get all of that out right there in that moment, so I don't carry that next energy to the next call." Anybody who's worked alongside of me, they know that I'm a trip to listen to, because my typical call for me is, "Why do you want to go to school? You want to be a scuba? You want to be an influencer? Okay, well, we can't help you with that. Okay, well, have a good day. You dumb motherfucker, you." And that's kind of how I deal with it. Right in that very next moment, I let it out that you a damn numbskull. And so it's my way of getting it out of my system. But even when I'm dealing with something serious, you can't keep that energy in. I'm sorry. Somebody want to say something?
No, I was going to piggyback off Candace as far as being able to talk with someone, because growing up, my dad was a pastor, and I really looked up to my father, and my father had an affair in the church, and it really took my trust away at a younger age, or as a man, because I looked at my dad like, well, that's my dad. He did everything.
Right.
And by him up there preaching and telling us the way, and then you're sleeping with women of the church, it made me look at men a very different way. And then when my mom and father got divorced, I was like, wow, like I didn't expect it. I was still young, but it still kind of broke me. And then when my mom got remarried, my stepdad, who's a jackass, I mean, they've been married 25 years, but he is. it took like a lot of my trust away. So then when I got married, it was like a cycle. When I got married, I got married to someone who I thought was I can talk to, who wound up being emotionally abusive. Sometimes it was physical. So it was until I got divorced. I was talking to a therapist, but now with the person I'm in, like, well, y'all know Bert, who I'm engaged to, is like I can actually talk to him. I can get out, we can vent, and it's like very therapeutic because I'm gonna be honest, it was hard to get through to me. I was like a barbed wire, like I getting in anymore, F all men. Like that was how I was. It wasn't good it was very damaging to be in that situation. And I had to realize that it stemmed from my childhood. Like I never really had that trust, even though I got older, even though I got married, even though I still had that brick wall up. And it feels good, like when you can actually talk to someone and let your guard down and it be genuine. So I understand how, and therapy is very important. Now my mom was a social worker, so she believed in therapy. Okay. And so she did let me see a therapist at a young age because I was just going to school whipping people's ass. I didn't know what I was doing.
You go.
I was in there fighting.
You remind me of something Daracel told us at the very beginning of our early show. She said a girl's father, I'm quoting you, D, you said is the first man to disappoint her. Is that not what you said? Yeah. You know, and so I had never looked at it that way. Again, I don't know what it's like to have a father. And when she told me that, I internalized that, and I always remember that, you know, and I thought about the power of that damn, you know what I'm saying? And I think about you fathers who have daughters and the weight of that, you know what I'm saying? Because she says like a girl's dad is the first man to disappoint her because he's the standard of what she sees as a man. So to hear you tell that story is very powerful, you know. So yeah.
And I would say to women, find you a man that doesn't judge you, that understands you, that listens to you.
Man, so okay, so D, you said that's so simple. We hear you. Was you finished? Because I want to ask a question behind that.
Well, I think it was buffering, but I was just gonna say the reason that me and Steve, he truly is my best friend. I mean, I could talk to him about any and everything. And I went to therapy because of the things that happened in my childhood. But even in therapy, it was very hard for me to open up even to a therapist because I was always taught that the secrets that are ours to keep forever. And even in therapy, you find it hard to open up to a therapist. And that's the whole reason you're there. But I found a therapist that was patient with me. And she understood that it just took a little more time. But with Steve, I mean, he understands, he's not judgmental. He, you know, unconditional love is like something I never had with my family, but I have it with him. Somebody who truly, despite your flaws, despite your past, despite everything, they still love you and want to be with you. I got a lot of shit going on in the past, but
let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question, D. When you started going to your therapist, did your therapist encourage you to journalize your experiences, to write it down?
No, because at the time I was already writing stuff down, and sometimes it's a little painful to relive those moments. So you don't really want to write them down and have them on paper.
Wow.
We started with the present and then we went back to the past. And that was, for me, it was more beneficial than starting from the beginning going forward. It was, you know.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, we just kind of worked. She was, you know, she's very good. She worked with how I wanted to do things, and that worked best for me. You have to find a therapist, and it won't always be the first one because I had several, but it's one that kind of understands you and is willing to work with you. And that's what helped me. I mean, it really did. And I encouraged my family to like find a therapist because we have the same trauma, but you know, you can't fix it until everybody's fixed.
I like that. That's really
something. Shoot. If I would have needed to see a therapist, what you think Mama would have said to me?
Yeah, we grew up in a kind of family that like I said, y'all think I'm joking, but you know, you better go take some Robitussin and lay your monkey ass down. You know,
You know what? Because of that, like say ways, guess what? That's what made me turn into a man beater. And I got away with it for a while. I toned down now, but I having no father figure in the house, it made me angry. That's why I beat men.
I'm laughing, but I gotta share something with y'all. I'm laughing, but I gotta share something with y'all. She's not lying, and I hate when she say that, because my sister know that I hate when she say that. But I wish I could tell you she's the only sister that beats men. She's not.
See, I was sorry. My story time, I mentioned where I punched a man in the face, and because of that, I didn't talk to him anymore. I never wanted to talk to a man that would make me want to beat him.
Thank you, for not being violent.
Yeah, but Candace, you know what? Honestly, I agree with you. But guess what? I always pick the ones that I could beat on at first, because I used to be angry because I didn't have a father in my life. Honestly.
But that's part of our generational curse.
Yep.
We pick men that we feel are weak. Because if you pick a man that you know gonna hit you back, you ain't gonna pick that man. You pick a man that you know is gonna allow that. So you have to think in the terms of, I don't want a man put his hands on me, so I will not put my hands on a man. Period.
You're right.
What if you're thinking you don't care if he puts his hands on you, like you just in his own? Like
it just depends in the context of how he put his hands on me.
Y'all nasty freaky ass is thinking about something else.
Love is not a contact sport unless it's sex. We don't do the hitting things.
I tried the hitting thing at 16. At that time, it was popular to hit your girlfriend. So I was dating a young lady named Cleo.
Popular.
It was popular in New York to beat your girlfriend, slam her on the bench and beat her up and everything, because women was loving it. Oh my God, he really loves me. So I said, I'm going to go out and try that. I was dating a young girl named Cleo, you know, slim, light skin. She was a yellow bone. Yeah, I was doing my thing. So, okay, up one night, 145th Street, I hauled off and popped her across her head, and she lit into me like a whirlwind, and that was the end of that. So, I didn't like how I felt getting hit back. So that was my first hit and my last hit.
But you know what, D? Honestly, I had it in a way where I really didn't have to beat him, because I would have had, all I had to do is make one call. That's why I asked Freddie why he didn't tell me about what was going on with him, because he would come and look for me when my mother sent him, and they would be like, what you want? If I would have said beat on him, they would beat him.
I wouldn't have. No, so don't put me in that. I wouldn't have.
No, I said when you came to look for me.
Okay, no, because I want to say my family was very violent. Very violent.
I'm not saying you would have beat on them.
Right.
When Mama sent you to come look for me.
Oh yeah. I get what you're saying. I'm letting the audience know out there in the audience world. One of the reasons why I was so smart is I joined every club, group you could think of, because they were some violent ghetto mother suffers. So, you know.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm telling you about the family, because when I was even having my daughter, they all was up there, and I was in there having a baby, and I hear them arguing, and I hear them going to my sister, well, I thought you said you was the mother before my mother got there. And my sister was going, I am the mother, bitch, I'm the godmother. And everybody was arguing, and I was trying to drown them out. This is what they do. But I'm saying, when Mama would send you to come look for me, when you would come and find me, what would happen?
Well, no, she got beat, you know. What do you mean?
When you found me and I was with my friends or group of people.
What about it?
What would the guys say to you? That was I was around or with. They would be telling you, who is this?
Yeah, but that's a whole nother subject where my sister was built and I got questioned and things like, you know, about that. But again, I was not a violent person. I abhorred violence. But as I was telling you guys, I was dealing with my own level of double life stuff. you know. And so honestly, I wasn't about to share all of that with anybody. You know, I genuinely had to process all that and learn from it. So even when I got married at 21, I wasn't a bit more ready for marriage. I took that level of toxicity into a marriage and I did the best I could. But to be honest with you, I had no example of a father or that I could lean on. I had to pick from different marriages that I saw that I thought, well, I like what he does. And he looks like he does this well. And so I had to pick from those things to try to be the best husband I know I could be. I apologize to my ex-wife. I was a decent husband, but I wasn't ready for marriage, you know. And a lot of that is because of the baggage that I used to tell people, oh, I don't have any baggage. Doing this subject, as I established from the beginning, we all have baggage, believe it or not. We all have some baggage that we drag into a relationship. It's how you process it, and that's what we're talking about right now. So that's why I was asking about, did your therapist say write it down? Because for some people, when you write it down, it becomes real, it becomes valid, you know. And so you guys were talking about earlier that as Black girls, it's inbred in you that you don't matter. And I think nobody's teaching Black girls to write it down, that your thoughts, your ideas, your dreams are valid. That if nobody else don't hear me, this is real. This happened to me. You know, so that's why I asked that question, D.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
What Sherry was saying.
We're taught at an early age that we have an attitude, we're sexy, and we're only good for making babies. That's really
Correct.
what it is.
Correct.
And but what's funny is we are like the most educated in the United States. So
The most educated, no. When I pulled the statistics up, the most educated on the earth is Black women. You guys have a thirst for knowledge and still are overlooked in so many ways. And so that's kind of what we're talking about here in this, which brings me to the next step, understanding how betrayal can get in the way of forgiveness. I thought that this is a huge one because so many times we carry this shame, this guilt of what's happened to us and to other relationships, because guess what? Either we won't forgive ourselves or we won't forgive the person that committed that against us. And you might say, well, why would you forgive the uncle that molested me? Or the father that beat me? Or the mother that taught me some habits or didn't teach me certain things right? I always tell people this, in my personal opinion, forgiveness is not about them, it's about you.
Right.
It's not about them. And so even for me in my own personal situation, that's why I said to you guys, I choose not to look at it as, well, this turned me into this person, because I can't control what happened in the past. It happened. But what I decided to do was, that's not going to define me. You know what I'm saying? So I know right from wrong, and I have to try to be a better person. And it's a process, you know. So when I use the term predator, I don't, I'm not proud of it, but I own it. But I do own it.
And I say this, with the forgiveness helped me with a particular uncle that I have dealt with. His karma caught up with him, and he was facing 240 years in prison. He's out now, and I can appreciate. I truly feel like he's learned his lesson based off of what has happened or what has transpired as he's lived his life. So it took a lot, and I don't have any ill feelings towards him. What I do have ill feelings towards are the people that still don't like the fact that I have an opinion on what he did to me. So
okay.
And one thing I wanted to say about the forgiveness thing, I hadn't spoken to my mother probably in about 10 years, I guess. And we had a little get together in Memphis for Thanksgiving, and she was there. And I had made the decision, like, I forgive her, but I don't want to deal with her. I don't want her around my children. I don't want her to be that negative influence like she was on me, because I feel like the situation with her is, until you truly feel like you want forgiveness. Like she ain't never asked for forgiveness. She's never apologized for the things that she contributed to that happened to me in my childhood that
Right.
basically set up for a negative experience. And I forgive her
Right.
because it gives me a sense of peace, not for her. I didn't tell her I forgave her or anything like that. But I just don't, it's like you can't hold on to that anger for all those years. I mean, because it affects you more. I'm walking around pissed off at her. She living her best life. So, it's like,
That's
it don't
seriously,
matter.
and that's
So
serious.
I had to let it go in order for me to just move on. And yeah, she's my mom. She had me. And I mean, I think about this on a daily basis. If she died, would I go to the funeral? The answer is probably no. But, I
Wow.
forgive her for myself. I had to forgive her for my children. I had to forgive her just to be able to move on. And that's what I done. I see her and I can say hey and I can speak and I can be polite, but we will never have that mother-daughter relationship. I mean, never. But forgiveness is more about the person that was hurt than the person that offended. That's what forgiveness is about. You sometimes have to just say, even though this person is not asking for forgiveness, I'm going to have to forgive you in order to let go.
Yeah, forgive
I agree, and it's just sad to hear though that for a daughter and a mom, that breaks my heart in a way that you said if she died, that that the thought that you might not even go to the funeral, that tells you how deep family secrets and the pain and stigma and the trauma can cut. That here we are, that so that's it's sad, but
Exactly.
again, for your own health of you personally and for your family, you had to make a decision to forgive and let it
Mhm.
go.
Right.
So I understand that. And so that brings me to the last three things I want to talk about, in terms of moving forward, because after we brought all of the darkness into the light, we know that, you know, that we faced it. So where do we go from here? And can family secrets sometimes even be a good thing? You know, so I want to ask a question. In what way can family secrets be a good thing? What good can come from it? I ain't gonna say come from it, but how do you spin the negative into the positive? Anybody?
Um,
Well,
if
one
I
of the ways.
any family
Oh,
secret, you can go, Kennard. Kennard was speaking.
Come
oh,
on,
I'm sorry,
Kennard.
but I think I'm delayed. I didn't get you off, but I think one of the ways with this, whether it's a family secret, because my thing in growing up really wasn't necessarily a family secret, so to speak. A lot of things that went on in my childhood was just like a lot of shit going on. Like, say for instance, relatives dying left and right, single parent household, all that other stuff. But either way, that was it made me a very chaotic person. Even to this point at work, I literally have to write things down on a list, or else I will be mentally all over the place, because growing up I had to multitask a lot because of everything that was going on. But now I say that to say this. Those experiences, though, I think they can be a good thing, because you learn how to have the opportunity to learn how to have a certain sense of emotional intelligence, to where you respond to things instead of reacting to things. Because I know if we react to every situation, especially as adults, sometimes that might not be the right reaction. But based on your experiences, you can say, okay, this is the more probable outcome to this situation. So I'm going to respond by processing what the fuck is going on, and then trying to get to a more intelligent. Now that shit's easier said than done, but that's one of the best outcomes that comes from trauma, that comes from, I'd say in some people's cases, abuse, or any type of objective situation in your past. You have the opportunity to learn a really, really high level of emotional intelligence.
I like that. I like that thought. Come on, Hannah.
I was going to just say that I think that the past with my family, honestly, me growing up, I did have a very bad childhood. Outside of that, like my stepdad used to beat me nonstop while my mom was working in the school.
Wow.
And it taught me to save. I got a job, and I was determined at 18. I was like, I'm moving out. So literally midnight hit. It was my birthday. I moved into my own home. Like I was out of there. And I think it taught me to be more responsible, to be more determined, gave me a more zeal because and when I say I was getting beat, it wasn't because I was bad, because when I say my mom wouldn't let me bring a beat home, I was a straight A student.
Mm-hmm.
I was on activities, but my mom didn't know prior to my uncle introducing my stepdad to her. He was a deacon. We found out a year into the marriage, he was on drugs. So it was a lot that my mom was trying to work, get her bachelor's degree, work full time. My mom wasn't really around. My brother was boxing. Well, God rest his soul, he's not here anymore. My brother was boxing and not really there. So I was basically the punching bag. So
Wow.
I got from that as though the older I get, I'm going to save more. When I'm able to work, I'm going to be able to work. I'm going to be on my own. I'm going to be independent, and I'm going to be able to make my own money so I can be able to move and don't have to deal with this anymore. And I think it helped me to be able to person who I am now. I mean, it kind of a little bit, because when I met my fiance, he was like, you too independent. You need to chill. But I feel as though that past helped me to be a better structured person, because I am organized. I have certain things I do a certain way, and I know I can save. I know I have rainy day funds, because it just taught me as a younger age, no matter what happens, I have to be able to survive on my own and not
Self-reliance.
any of this drama.
Self-reliance and independence.
Yeah.
You
So
know.
it was helpful to me. Like I take the good, like we're cordial now. I don't have any bad blood from him. They're still married, of course.
Okay.
My mom's seeing it now that she's older with my sisters. She's actually seeing who he is. But
Okay.
growing up, my mom, wasn't that she was really trying to avoid it. But then when she came home, she was a social worker. She was still on his side. So it kind of was bad and good. But I just learned that I have me and I would have to take care of me. But I also learned that if you learn how to save, you can pretty much be on your own way and do your own thing. So I think that's what I got out of it.
I like that. Again, self-reliance and independence. We called that growing up in our household, Hannah. God bless the child.
That has its own.
That's what we learned in our household, because my mother used to say, if you want to do your own thing, go get your own place. And so, Sherry,
I dipped.
right, and so even for all of us, you get grown, and when you want to do your own thing, you want to pay the cost to be the boss, you leave. But it teaches you self-reliance and independence to stand on your own. But I want to add one thing to a good thing about when it comes to secrets, because here's what you want to understand too. There's a difference between privacy and secrecy. So,
Right.
on the one hand, it's okay to share things to get off your chest when it's healthy. But there are times when you don't have to divulge every little thing that's going on, because the other good thing about it is sometimes that can protect you. It can make you a stronger person too. And I'll say, even for me, I wouldn't be who I am. So despite all of the negativity, it also made me who I am. Like you said, I can stand on my own 2 feet, and I've been through some shit. Because I think for a lot of the generations that came behind me, they're so weak and they give in to every little thing that breaks them. And so for me, what those experiences taught me is you can't break me. You cannot break me. And so we were talking at the beginning of this conversation about today is inauguration day. Tasha says it's just another Wednesday. She's right. She's right. Well, I'm saying it in this sense. While we celebrating that, the end of a nightmare, and I can celebrate that, but you know where she's right? Tomorrow I still got to get my monkey head ass up and go to work, because tomorrow's Thursday, and regardless as if Agent Orange was in office, or the old man. I still got to go to work and do what I got to do, so that the reality is it's just another day, in the sense that I got to still get up and do the things that keep my life moving forward. And so in that sense, Tasha's right, in a sense that I don't ever get too high on what's going on. I don't get too low, because I'm distinctly aware of who I am, and that those same secrets that maybe did some damage also made me stronger. And it's made me private, because there's a difference between being private. Because what you don't want to do, though, you don't want to be this new generation that you share every little thing about yourself. Every time somebody talk to you, woe is me, he on, the Eeyore, the donkey and shit, that everything bothers me. Oh my God, the sky is falling, and this, that,
Lee,
that person.
This is the thing with them. They share it online, but when you try to talk to them as a student, it's just one word answers, like, I'm good, yes, no. And it's like, okay, do I need to meet you on social media for you to talk?
I just wanted to add this real quick, Black. I think that the revelation of family secrets can lead to healthier families. And I think that with the ones we have on here, for some of the secrets that you have focused on, that you have acknowledged, you're doing better and with your own families, and having a healthier environment.
Hannah was physically abused, and hey, I know what that's like, so I'm not gonna do that to my kids
because of that. Like,
you see what I'm saying? Daracel, you know what I'm saying? I forgive, but Steve is my best friend, and I got somebody I can share shit with, and I'm gonna raise my kids in a different environment. Candace, same way. Sherry, again, one daughter, and the closeness of it. I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, D.
I was just gonna say, making the Tasha's point. I was just gonna say that I had made up in my mind when I was 16 and planning my escape from my house. I said that I will never be like my mother. I will not be the kind that neglects her children and allows a man to abuse her children. Like, all the things, it really does shape you. Either you follow that trend or you stray from it. And I decided that the kind of man that I wanted would never be the kind of man that she dated. The kind of mother that I want to be would, so it really does shape you. And so my kids will never grow up with some of the curses and trauma that I grew up with. I have made a conscious effort to make sure that they never. I don't want my daughter on the pole. I don't want my son beating, abusing. I don't want any of that. That's my goal. To raise healthy children that can maintain healthy relationships.
Bravo. Well, me and Sherry share the same father, and we're told that Fred was a drunkard, so I come by my drinking naturally. But I don't beat women. So I took some of the things from him.
That is not what that meant. Okay.
No.
You know what's funny? You drink now because you say that. I drink now because alcohol was forbidden in my household.
Okay.
That right there.
My first drink at 21.
I do think for me, it comes. I started drinking, secretly when I was 12 years old. But again, I can hold because on a serious note, to Daracel's point, I heard the stories about him getting sloppy drunk and beating my mom. So it's kind of funny that you say that, D. I was determined to handle my liquor. So for me, I'm in the opposite. When I get really, really lit, either I sit and smile, or I might talk crazy. Tasha and Daracel see me truly lit, but I'm not violent. I'm more funny than violent.
I want to see that, Freddie.
So they can tell you some experiences when I'm when I'm lit, but I'm not violent. But I'm never violent. Now I might go to Taco Bell and demand that they serve me some French fries, but
that still pisses me off.
But I ain't gonna hurt nobody.
Surprise.
So that's what I'm talking about. Gone. So yeah. But I take all those experiences And again, it's made me who I am, a better person. So yeah, I agree with what Tasha says. And so the other point is to drive it home, I'm not defined by other people's secrets.
Mm.
As I talked about in the very beginning, I acknowledge what my mom has gone through. My brothers and sisters lived through some shameful shit and they keep secrets and they gonna probably take them to the grave. I don't know all those things. I stopped chasing that though because that can't define me. I live in the South right now because what the South mean for them, it doesn't mean for me. So that doesn't define me. You know what I'm saying? So for me, I have to live my own experiences, and I respect the hell out of what they've gone through. These are some of the strongest people I know, and I wish they would open up a little bit more. But again, as we go down the generations, they're still dealing with keeping that inside, you know. And for me, I had to let a lot of that go. And so I had to open up and let a lot of that go and realize, you know what, that's not going to define me. That I want to be better, I want to do better. And that's where I am in terms of building me up to be a better person. You know. Last point, where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? So for me, when I looked at it, talked about make a decision, decide where do you go from here, you know. And so I said, for me, I own it all. I own my good and I own my bad. And the only thing we can do, in my opinion, it's not a New Year's resolution, it's a life resolution. I tell people I'm always trying to evolve to be a little bit better today than I was yesterday. I came on tonight with a mission not to curse as much. I slipped up a few times, but I'm trying to tone it down. I wanted to be a little bit better with this show than I've been with other shows. And so it's small things, but that's the thing. On a serious note, it's making small incremental steps where you can be a little bit better, you know, so that hopefully for me, since we're talking about this as it affects relationships, I talked to Darcel about this a few months back. I was in the gym, believe it or not, with my fat self, but I was talking to her one night and I was in the gym. And I was telling her that I'm working on myself to try to be a little bit better. And I realized my faults. And so for me, that hopefully when that next right person come along, I know a lot of my triggers and I can be a little bit better, you know. And that's all I can do is that, you know, I have to be, I have to work on being a little bit more affectionate. I have a sharp tongue to try to be a little bit more loving towards when I'm talking to that person. Be completely open and honest about who I am, because my hope is that that person falls for me and all of who I am. But if that's the case, I gotta not be as judgmental as well and fall for all of who she is, because that's the other tendency, is for me to be looking for something that I'm not necessarily bringing to the table myself. So I'm trying to get better. So that's my whole thing when it comes to it. So I'll let you ladies kind of say for you how you plan on moving forward, because where do you go from here with your family secrets? Anybody?
Well, for me, I'm teaching my son that his manhood, that's not his power. It's in his mind, because a lot of times in my family, especially, the more women you had, the more powerful you were, and the more you were able to be accomplished. And those men ended up harming women. I have men in my family that have gone to jail for harming young girls and women. So my thing is, I want my son to be intellectually smart, and I want him to know that when you protect your woman and when you value your woman for what she is, because we are the prize. I don't know where this whole men are the prize is coming from. We are the prize.
Well, now I am gonna say we the prize too.
We are the prize because we bear your children, and it's up to us to decide whether or not we want to carry your children. So we are the prize. So
I love that, and I'm gonna have to do a show on that, because men, we the damn prize too now.
But I'm teaching my son and I'm teaching my son and how to be, and not all black men, because for some reason the perception out here is that black men want to just rape, and Black women are just hoes, and I want to move away from that. And so I'm moving away from that and showing my son that there's other aspects of life.
Okay, I like that. Anybody else?
I'll go. I think that what I learned, because I have a son and a daughter, and I learned that I try to show them a lot of affection. I don't drill religion in them like it was drilled in me. I kind of let them make their own decisions on what they want to do, because I didn't have a choice. I didn't have a voice, and a lot of people judge me from the way I raise my kids. They're not respectful. They get straight A's. I don't hound them. They are spoiled, I'll be honest, but it's not because they didn't earn it. So everything that they had, I mean, I'm blessed. I'm not going to say like we're not struggling. And me growing up, I didn't had a rough childhood, but I never wanted for anything. So I kind of try to keep that within my kids, so they can really learn. And I also had to realize that I own my shit. So I know how I can be. I know what I am. I know what I want to be. So I've always been the person who knows her downfalls, but knows my flaws and knows what my worth as well. So I try to kind of let my kids know the same thing. Like, yeah, you can't do this. Like my son, he's developed this habit of lying, which I don't know where the hell it came from. I don't know. Like he just lied for no reason ever since he turned 14. He just be lying about dumb stuff that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. And
That's a boy.
Yes, I'm trying to explain to him like
boy.
I had him watching so I let them watch certain things. I had them watching the show called Your Honor, and I'm telling him like, you see how this boy, he didn't realize it. He stole the thing and his life is over. So you can't lie or you can't do certain things. So instead of me drilling into them, I kind of try to just show them so you can see and get the visual of what can really happen. So I think from my family's past and my family secrets, well, mine is the drinking because my family is straight alcoholics. Mine is my parents, actually. My parents don't drink. My mom might have a drink here and there. My dad is still no alcohol. He's not no women. But so I kind of try to not be my parents and learn from what I truly believe were the mistakes they made, and not repeat that same, because that's how a lot of generation curses start. We kind of repeat the same habits. And I'm trying to break that with my kids. So I think that all in all, just making me be a different parent.
Okay. Sherry.
Well, for me,
where do you go from here?
Well, for me, like I said, I'm trying to work on myself, for one. I think I'm pretty blessed because even though I told you guys that I was a man beater, you know, I'm trying to get away from that because I say I'm blessed because I have a good husband that I've been married to for 31 years, which is a long time, you know, and as far as our kid, my daughter.
You should not tell people that.
Tell them what?
That you're a man beater.
You hear her, right? So much you did not tell people that.
Tell her thank you.
I gotta keep it real. It's real talk for real men, women and men, whatever. But anyway, you know, he stuck with me, putting up with, you know, everything, you know what I'm saying? And I gotta give him props for that. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of men would have been gone. You know what I'm saying? Because I have whooped on them, you know, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, not like that, like what y'all thinking, but you know, I got a lot from, you know, my mom being the woman she was, you know, growing up. So I don't really want to be that. You understand? And then as far as my daughter, you understand, I got away from a lot of things that, like I told you, Tasha, the strict household. I wasn't as strict, but I wasn't loose either. I just, you know, to, you know, accomplish things in life. And as you know, Tasha, she's doing pretty good. You know, a lot of girls out here, her age, you know, she's finishing school and doing her thing. And so I think, you know, I got away from I'm doing better.
Okay.
I haven't snatched no ladies out of the McDonald's window and no type of stuff like that. Okay. I try not to be that person, you know what I'm saying? But I'm trying. That's it.
Okay. Daracel, where do you go from here when it comes to family secrets?
I have said in my life that I refuse to keep any more family secrets. I don't allow my children to keep family secrets. And I tell them we make it a point that I've already told them if somebody tells you to keep a secret, then it's wrong. So they already understand that a secret is bad. Like we don't keep secrets from mommy, we don't keep secrets from daddy. That cuts out a lot of the things that can happen with secrets. And also, I mean, we just have to raise our children up. They're the next generation, and a lot of the things that we experienced and we went through, I just have said that my kids will never experience that. They will never go through that. So that's part of just we have to change the cycle, and our children, all of us on here that have children, that's the next generation. So we stop it with them, and that's where it ends. No more secrets, no more curses, no more things like that. We stop it there, and that's the end of it. So if we can get everybody on board to do that, then the next generation is going to be much better off.
I love the hope in that. Tasha,
So
I do. I really do. And the thing of it is, we have to change people one subscriber at a time.
Yeah.
Tasha, where do you go from here?
healthy people, healthy families don't need secrets. And
Right.
we should not allow how we choose to heal ourselves to be based off of how someone may view us. So if they may judge us for that or whatever it may be, or condemn us for it for letting the secret be known, we cannot be worried about how someone else feels about us. You have to do what's best for you. I'm going to say it again. Self-care 2021 for me. Everyone needs to do it. So
That I love. So I'll end on that note that I agree with 100%. I thank everybody for participating. I love the sentiment from everybody, and it's clear that I think people want to do better. We're trying to be better, and like I said to Daracel, hopefully we can just change one mind at a time. I think talking about it is where it starts. At the beginning of this conversation, a secret is a secret because nobody's talking about it. So the way you combat that is you put it out in the open. And at that point, you address it. It's real. You deal with it. And like Daracel said, going forward, you don't have to keep those kind of secrets. We can be better. We can be better. We can do better. And that's my hope is that, that we can just try to strive to be better people all the way around. And then, of course, for my men out there, D is still important. So regardless, we are the prize. Just y'all know that. But so I have to say that. That's what they fellas, they're not gonna give us that, but
At all.
we know what's up.
Take away
Anyway.
and see if you
Say it again, D. Say it again. We give you life. We're the prize.
I'm not disagreeing with any of that.
I don't want to be vulgar,
I
but
had
take
one
away-
rule. I had one rule then, fellas, that you say, you know what? They can be the boss in every other room, but that one room. Handle your business, fella. So, with that said, it's been another good edition of Real Talk for Real Men. Thank you, Derek. Thank you, Kama. I appreciate your comments. Thank you, everybody. Don't forget to like, comment, to share, and please subscribe to the channel. Everybody have a great evening.
Bye.
You still.